What is up, you guys, and welcome to another Holster's Fantasy Huddle. First, make sure you check free agency and league transactions. Now, this is important because you never know if there's a gem in the free agent market, because there could be, let's say, like a starting running back gets hurt and his backup is still available. This could be a starter for your fantasy football team. Make sure you're also watching to see what players your league mates drop, because sometimes they get tired or frustrated with a player and they'll just drop them. This happens all the time, especially in the very beginning of fantasy football. Like in the first 4 weeks, somebody would be like, this guy's terrible, he's garbage, and someone that historically does pretty well, but they just had a bad 4 games. You need to stash that person if you have the bench space available. Number 2, stream your defense and kicker. Look, drafting defense is very difficult to predict. It's usually never the same defense. In fact, I think it's been the past 6 years, the top 3 defense has not repeated at all. For example, in 2017, I drafted a defense in the 14th round, and then I ended up picking up the Jacksonville Jaguars, who weren't even drafted, and they ended up being the best defense that year, dominant. Kickers are also a position you should stream. You should never drop a player like a skilled wide receiver or running back. You should never have really 2 kickers on your team. You should be benching a skilled player like a running back or a wide receiver. Kickers are interchangeable. You can pretty much just fill them in whenever. They're not really, you don't need to have more than one. I cannot stress that enough. Number 3, plan for your waiver pickups and try to snipe. So by sniping, it means picking up a player when waivers clear. Typically, this happens around sometimes 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, and then you can pick up those players without having to use your waiver wire at all. Now, this doesn't really take effect if you use Fab. It kind of affects it a little bit, but Fab makes it way better to where you kind of eliminate sniping, and then you also don't have to worry about holding on to it. You just have to conserve your money throughout the season. You don't want to waste your waiver wire. So waiver wire is traditionally a continuous moving thing. If you're doing reverse order, you need to stop it, get that out of your league. It is the worst thing ever to do that. So if you're the 3rd best waiver and you're oh, there's some decent guys out there, don't waste your pick. Save it for somebody that's gonna be really good. For example, 1 year, Lev Bell went down and D'Angelo Williams was his backup, and my league mate saved his waiver wire, and he got D'Angelo Williams, and it basically won him the championship that year. Number 4, have a fantasy buddy. There are gonna be times when you're playing fantasy football, and even after all your research and knowledge that you have in fantasy football, you can still make dumb mistakes. So it's really good to have somebody there to check you or have a audit system. If you have a buddy that knows your league, it makes it a little bit easier because they kind of already know all the rules for your league. It's hard to just go by generic, articles and say, well, this player is ranked above this. And it's well, is there bonuses? Is it PPR? It's just very difficult to predict with just general articles. It can help you a little bit, but not always. And sometimes, you might have 2 players that are both, starts of the week, and you don't know which one to go with. Plus, if your fantasy buddy is wrong, you can yell at somebody else besides just yourself. The fantasy buddy also allows you not to, like I said, crack under pressure. It gives you confidence in your play because you're making the right move. Because sometimes, you're gonna make the wrong move in fantasy, and it's gonna happen. It's not the logical play, to do something, and you go the other way, what you think is logical, and you're still gonna lose. So don't beat yourself up for that. But this just helps give you comfort that, hey, I made the right decision. If you need a fantasy buddy, you can go ahead and you can follow me on Twitter at Holster's Fantasy Huddle, and I will try to give you the best advice I can. If you do ask a question, please tell me the exact players available and if it's PPR or non-PPR. The last one is talk on the fantasy board. Now, this one's not so much a trick or tip to give you a better chance at winning, but to improve your overall experience with your fantasy football league. You might not know everyone in your league, and this is a great way to build relationships with people that might be able to help you out in the real world. Trash talking in a league, though, is definitely something that makes it a lot more fun. It's a great way to relieve stress. You really need to have good community building with your fantasy football league because it just helps build up the fun and makes everything better when you're playing fantasy football and you actually know the guys you're playing against. You guys, that's the video. If you liked it, please hit that like or subscribe button down below. If you guys have any ideas on any videos you need me to help you explain with fantasy football, leave a comment down below. Or if you have any general questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Once again, you guys, I'm Holscher, and I'll see you in the next huddle.